Upon first entering most of Demon's Souls Archstones, you're given a moment or two to safely acclimatise to your new surroundings. In Latria, there's the short journey to its palace, you spawn outside Stonefang Tunnel before exploring its depths, and so on and so forth. The same does not happen when you begin your journey through the Tower of Latria. There is no build-up, no time to adjust, it's just you, the prison, and whatever nightmares lurk ahead. It is the first of many surprises which help make the first chapter of Demon's Souls' third world the scariest level developer From Software has ever produced. As you take your first tentative steps out into this terrifying new world, the first thing which will cause you great discomfort is Latria's superlative sound design. Like the game's other, less frightening environments, there is a backing track, a nighttime soundscape consisting predominantly of crickets, but it's the inhabitants of this hellscape who take centre stage. They're a big reason why the dramatic shift in tone to all-out horror works so effectively. Inmates scream in pain, the anguished cries of an unseen man can also be heard, and in the distance, a terrifying new foe rings its bell. The prison's floors are symmetrical and stacked on top of one another, with lots of empty space in their middle, which amplifies the tension tenfold, as you're often never quite sure whether the source of an unsettling noise is something you'll need to deal with imminently, or if it's lurking on another floor, waiting to pounce. The demonic, octopus-headed Mind Flayers, an unofficial name given to them due to their similarity to a Dungeons & Dragons monster, will be your biggest concern. It is they who punish anyone who dares trespass or attempts to escape. That includes you, of course, and it's highly likely you'll fall foul of these beasts a few times before getting the better of them. Besides their hideous features, what's so great about the Mind Flayers is that their abilities are functionally ideal for their role. They can fire soul arrows, a very effective attack within such an open space. They have a blast which pushes any aggressors away, and a spell which causes paralysis long enough that they can rush over and stab you with their tentacles. That last one in particular is a near faultless mechanism for dealing with any escapees. Like your uniquely abrupt entrance into Latria, Mind Flayers are also unlike anything you'll have experienced in Demon's Souls while working through each world's first level. They're the only real threat you'll encounter, other than a single prisoner horde, a repulsive ball of writhing bodies, and by my count there are only 9 of them patrolling the whole area. Latria Palace has its many skirmishes with dredgelings and soldiers, punctuated by occasional encounters with blue and red-eyed knights. In Stonefang Tunnel, its many miners are the common aggressor, with the fat officials upping the difficulty every now and then. Each has a mix of easy enemies you'll encounter frequently and tough enemies you barely come across, whereas the Mind Flayers sit in the uncommon middle ground between those two groups. That combination of them being rare but not too rare, and being strong but not too strong is inspired, as it makes them imposing while maintaining a degree of mystique. There are also the poor souls locked away to deal with. Most are passive and will simply ignore you, follow you or flee, but some will attack. Fortunately, they can be easily defeated, and consequently, you may begin to think of them as cannon fodder enemies in the mould of the aforementioned dredgelings, soldiers and miners. There is a huge difference, however. Every prisoner can be completely ignored. You'll come across a lot of them, but they are all locked away bar 2 wandering different floors you can simply run past, which means reaching the end boss without killing any of them is entirely possible. With many of their cells containing treasure, they also help give rise to interesting moral quandaries too. Dispatching them to get your hands on the various trinkets they guard is an admission that their lives are worth less than your own self-interest, although considering the appalling conditions they're being kept in, some might argue death isn't the worst fate for them. Alternatively, you can be benevolent and leave them be, focusing only on the Mind Flayers, but then by choosing not to release them, have you yourself not become a jailer by proxy. Both options create bleak dynamics which fit the Tower of Latria's tone perfectly. That oppressive atmosphere is also felt all the more acutely thanks to the prison's layout and the use of keys, a mechanic which isn't used anywhere close to the same extent during the rest of Demon's Souls. To best highlight why it's unusual, let's quickly take a look at the game's first proper level, Latria Palace, which by the by remains one of the Souls series' best designed outings. Click the card on screen now to watch my video chatting about it. Your first port of call when working your way through the palace's outskirts is to follow a fairly involved path which gets you up onto its battlements, at the end of which is a set of stairs. At the bottom there is a lever you can pull which opens up a shortcut. And hey presto, you now have quick and easy access to the battlements from near the level's start. Assuming you were diligent and collected all the items scattered around on your way through, the route prior to reaching the stairs and the lever is now mostly redundant, bar the faint possibility you use it to farm items from enemies. The same is mostly true of all of Demon's Souls' shortcuts. Once open, there's no real reason to revisit the paths you trod to unlock them. Most of the game's stages are like that just described, the familiar formula followed throughout much of the series' later entries too, but Latria's keys make the process of exploration more akin to that found in a survival horror title. The first, third and fourth floor keys you find unlock your path forward and create shortcuts in the process. As you find each of them, more of the prison can be skipped during subsequent runs. Then there are also cell keys, which often encourage backtracking to previous areas. Sometimes you'll come across locked cells, and it's only later you're able to access them to hoover up whatever valuables they contain. There are also 2 special keys to collect as well. One of them is found close to Latria's boss and unlocks the cell housing Sage Frake the Visionary, a powerful magician.
Magnificent. I never expected to get out of there alive. My name is Frake. I am known as a sage. I thought my magic would give me an edge against these demons, but how wrong I was. I have been enfeebled by my long imprisonment, but I can still move my legs, and I can make it back to the Nexus.
While the other opens a route by which you can avoid a giant ballista, more on that in a jiffy. You'll probably meet the distressed man you first heard when entering the prison too, but since he can't be freed until you visit Latria's second level, I'll save talking about him for a potential follow-up video. In the Boletarian Palace example shared, you need never retread old ground, whereas From Software actively encourages it in the prison, which along with Latria's aesthetic gives it a distinctive, horrifying sense of place. Everything is dreary and depressing, with nigh on every corridor littered with bodies, presumably those who tried to escape the torment. Those who remained didn't have it much better either, with many of the cells filled with torture devices and the corpses of those who succumbed to their injuries. Even the prison itself is an intensely foreboding structure due to its gothic architecture, with director Hidetaka Miyazaki stating that it was designed to be the embodiment of man-made evil. A big reason I hold Demon's Souls in such high regard despite it showing its age in certain places is its dreamlike atmosphere, which no other Souls game has managed to replicate to anywhere near the same degree. The Tower of Latria, however, is no dream, it's a nightmare. You are but a rat in a terrifying maze, scrabbling around in the darkness. During a first playthrough especially, what I've spoken about so far, the unnerving sights and sounds, the enemies and the level design, will likely make proceedings feel overwhelming at times. They might even feel downright unfair, thanks to some of the particularly cheeky little touches From Software includes. As ever though, upon taking the time to examine Latria in greater depth to gain an understanding of why everything is the way it is, you'll quickly come to realise that the developer always tries to help you before hindering you. It is wonderfully precise game design, and I want to share a few examples of it. A cause of frustration for many will be the labyrinthine setting itself, and even I will admit that it can be hard at first to keep your bearings while constantly moving between floors. You are provided with a solution right away though. In a cell mere meters from where the level begins, you'll find what will probably be the first item you pick up, several Orgites of Guidance. They are a panacea if you're lost and confused, if you take the hint, as you can drop them to mark areas which you've already cleared. Another fantastic example of Latria's diegetic audio, that is, in-world sounds your character can hear, that I didn't mention earlier, is the former royal's wife.
You're an ordinary human, aren't you? Where do you call home? Dear me, I shouldn't pry. Oh. Perhaps you'd like something from my collection.
Guess what she also happens to sell? That's right, more Orgites of Guidance. You can also purchase Royal and Widow's Lotuses from her, which cure poison and plague respectively, and it's another case of From Software providing an early solution to a future problem. There are many Iron Maidens within the prison, and towards its start you'll only find items inside them. Later, them being the source of various goodies is turned on its head, with some housing prisoners who will promptly burst out and poison you. Importantly, you can pick up a few Royal Lotuses on your journey to the former Royal's wife, and she is also encountered before reaching any Iron Maidens of that type, so you should be aware, if you've been attentive, that she has what's needed to cure you. It's the same with the Red Phantom guarding the route to the end boss, who can inflict you with plague, which the former Royal's wife also sells the cure to, and there are also some Widow's Lotuses which cure it to be found near the Phantom too. They're made quite hard to miss, as they're the items shining directly above where the fight unfolds. There's also this hole I'd wager 99% of adventurers will fall down due to being distracted by the item which lies beyond. It's certainly annoying having to retrace your steps after, but again it's a hint, or on this occasion perhaps a warning, that you need to keep your eyes peeled for more. In fact, From Software even tries the same trick later on, except with a crystal lizard instead of treasure and a fall to your death instead of a brief retracing of your steps. A test maybe, to see if you learned your lesson the first time. Finally, to jump back to the ballista for a second, it is a brilliant way of providing an additional skill-based shortcut. Of course, it's far easier to grab the key, take the long route round, casually walk up to the towering machine from behind and turn it off. But if it's not your first rodeo, and all that extra effort just sounds like a chore, you can also try to roll through the arrows to reach the other side and Latria's conclusion quicker. With the machine turned off, you can also loot the many bodies left in its wake. Among them is a stone of ephemeral eyes, and another is also dropped by the Red Phantom. Using one restores your body from soul form, which refills your health and magic and extends your health bar, and they constitute the final helping hand From Software lends you in Latria. In fact, they offer up a stone of ephemeral eyes before practically every single boss. For example, there's one up some stairs before fighting the Tower Knight in Latria, another on your path to the Armour Spider in Stonefang Tunnel, and again right outside the fog gate leading to Stonefang's second boss. I've deliberately tried to spoil as little of the game as possible during this video, but rest assured there are plenty more to be found before the rest of Demon Souls' dramatic showdowns too. After struggling through the prison, after dodging arrows and fending off a Red Phantom, all that's left to do is take down the Tower of Latria's boss, the Fool's Idol. As a fight, this is one of the more straightforward climactic battles in Demon Souls, but only if you've taken the time to have a good look around first. Up one of the staircases, found right before the steps leading to her, waits a sinister man.
What do you want? I am a humble servant. I do not wish to interfere. I won't cause you trouble. I won't.
But if you've spared all the prisoners up to this point and wish to continue to do so, it's possible you'll leave him be and head for the Fog Gate. For those who love the Souls series for its difficulty, the ensuing face-off won't be anything to write home about. The Fool's Idol splits herself into several copies, and you have to figure out which one is real in order to do any damage. The best two ways of doing this are to either look for which of the clones is firing a larger soul ray at you as opposed to a soul arrow, or to listen for the directional sound cue when they materialise, which points you in the right direction. Beyond her spells, the only other attack you need to be wary of are the Idol's traps, which temporarily pin you in place, and it shouldn't take long to emerge victorious once you've got into the swing of things. When she's finally been vanquished though, you're in for a nasty surprise.
Fools know nothing of the world. The idols shall be revived for eternity. Rejoice, fools, for it is as you wished.
But it should be clear at this point what is going on. There are also 3 messages on the ground which offer up additional clues if the man's taunts aren't blindingly obvious enough, and I dislike these as I think they are a bit too obvious. On the off chance you do decide to leave and then re-enter the arena without doing anything else, you'll be greeted by a newly revived Fool's Idol. What's more likely is that you'll make a beeline for the weird man you met earlier and kill him, thereby preventing the boss from returning after she's been vanquished. Heading back to the Fool's Idol, it's now time to take her down for good. During the first tussle with her, I spoke about how she's relatively uninteresting from a combat perspective. She could absolutely be described as a gimmick boss, but as a demon who fits the mood Latria is going for, the idol is an excellent fit. The Fool's Idol is named as such because she is an imitation of Latria's former queen. Long before the events of Demon Souls, the queen banished her husband, known as the Old Monk, for committing depraved crimes, and he later returned, demons in tow, to murder her and conquer Latria. Your reward for slaying the idol is the dull demon's soul, and the description for the soul ray magic says that it shows part of the power of the queen, who was a gifted sorceress, the suggestion being that the queen's soul, or at least part of it, was used by the old monk to give the doll life. Following the monk's ascendancy, most prisoners remained locked in their cells thanks to the fearsome mind flayers, and as we know thanks to the many bodies strewn around the prison, most who made a break for it didn't get very far. Those who were successful would eventually arrive at the church hoping the queen could offer them salvation, but instead they'd meet only an imposter and promptly be taken to the tower's upper levels by gargoyles. There the old monk would experiment on their souls, turning them into twisted monstrosities. Latria's prison is already a deeply unpleasant place to begin with, and the final gut punch as you come to understand that it's so much worse than you even imagined is a beautifully executed but horrible final flourish. Thanks to its PlayStation 5 remake, Demon Souls has had a new lease of life, and I cannot recommend it enough to those of you watching who haven't yet played it. From Software's later titles are more mechanically robust, but few, if any of them, are a match for Demon Souls when it comes to atmosphere and level design especially. Try to play the PlayStation 3 version too if you can, as in my view its simpler aesthetic only adds to the hopelessness and isolation. Regardless of version though, Demon Souls is a masterpiece, with the Tower of Latria a particularly terrifying high note. Thanks for watching the video, boys, girls and slayers of demons. If you had a terrifyingly good time, do consider liking, subscribing and sharing your thoughts, and fingers crossed we'll catch up again soon.